It started like any other Tuesday morning in Willowbrook Estates, our pristine suburban neighborhood where every lawn was measured to the exact 3-inch height requirement and mailboxes were inspected weekly for proper alignment. I was enjoying my coffee on the front porch when Karen Pemberton, our self-appointed H.O.A. president, came marching down the sidewalk with her signature clipboard and measuring tape. Karen was the kind of person who turned neighborhood watch into a full-time occupation. At 52, she had perfectly coiffed blonde hair that never moved in the wind, a collection of pastel cardigans that could stock a small boutique, and an uncanny ability to spot a trash can left out 30 minutes past collection time from 3 blocks away. She ruled our H.O.A. with an iron fist wrapped in a fuzzy pink mitten. "Good morning, Karen," I called out, already knowing this wouldn't be a pleasant social visit. She stopped at my gate, tapping her pen against her clipboard with the rhythm of an impatient woodpecker. "I need to discuss some serious violations I've documented at your property," she announced, not bothering with pleasantries. "Your garden gnome is 2 inches too tall according to decorative item regulations, and your hedge extends 1.5 inches beyond the approved property line." I set down my coffee cup and walked to the gate. As a former corporate attorney turned independent consultant, I'd learned to pick my battles carefully. My work with municipal law firms and property development companies had taught me that sometimes the best strategy was patience. "Karen, the gnome is a standard 12-inch garden variety, and I had the property surveyed last month. Everything is within bounds." She pursed her lips and made a note on her clipboard. "Well, I'll be conducting my own measurements. Also, I noticed some suspicious activity yesterday evening. Your teenage nephew was here with his friends, and I heard them using threatening language." My eyebrows shot up. Threatening language? Tyler and his friends are honor students. What exactly did you hear? "They kept saying something about digging in butts," Karen said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "One of them clearly said start digging in yo but twin. That sounds like a threat of violence to me. I'm considering filing a police report." I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing. My nephew Tyler was a straight-A student who spent most of his time gaming and studying. The idea of him threatening anyone was absurd. "Karen, I think there might be a misunderstanding. These kids use slang that might sound different to us older folks." But she was already shaking her head vigorously. "No, no, no. I know a threat when I hear it. SDIYBT start digging in yo but twin. That's clearly violent language. I won't have hoodlums terrorizing our neighborhood." Over the next week, Karen's complaints escalated dramatically. She filed noise complaints about Tyler's friends laughing too loudly. She measured my driveway daily, claiming my car was parked 1 inch over the property line. She even tried to fine me for having a doormat that was allegedly the wrong shade of brown according to her interpretation of the community color guidelines. When I received my 4th citation in 5 days, all for increasingly ridiculous violations, I decided it was time to do some research. My connections in the legal world had taught me that knowledge was power, and Karen was about to learn that lesson the hard way. I spent my weekend diving deep into county records, H.O.A. incorporation documents, and local municipal codes. What I discovered was fascinating. Karen had been playing fast and loose with H.O.A. procedures for years. She'd been issuing fines without proper board approval, holding meetings without required notice periods, and most importantly, she'd been interpreting rules that didn't actually exist in our official covenants. More interesting was the discovery that our H.O.A.'s incorporation had lapsed 2 years ago due to unpaid state fees, something Karen had either overlooked or ignored. Monday morning brought another visit from Karen, this time with a stack of papers and a smug expression. "I'm afraid I have some serious business to discuss," she announced. "Your nephew and his delinquent friends have created a hostile environment in our community. I've filed complaints with the county, and I'm demanding you ban them from the premises permanently." "Karen, let me make sure I understand. You want me to ban my honor student nephew because you misunderstood teenage slang? She nodded emphatically. SDIYBT is clearly a violent threat. I've researched it extensively, and I believe it's gang-related terminology. I had to admire her commitment to being completely wrong while remaining absolutely confident. That evening, I made some phone calls. My old colleague Sarah worked for the county development office. My former client Marcus had started a property management company specializing in H.O.A. transitions. By Wednesday, I had assembled a comprehensive plan that would address Karen's concerns in the most technically compliant way possible. Thursday morning, Karen arrived with backup 2 other neighbors she convinced that my nephew was running some kind of criminal operation. "This has gone too far," she declared. "I'm calling for an emergency H.O.A. board meeting to discuss your family's threat to community safety. SDIYBT cannot be tolerated in Willowbrook Estates." "That's an excellent idea, Karen. In fact, I think we need to address several H.O.A. matters that have been overlooked." I handed her a thick folder. "I've been doing some research of my own. Did you know that our H.O.A. incorporation lapsed in 2022? According to state law, all fines and citations issued by an unincorporated association are invalid." Karen's face went pale, then flushed red. "That's impossible. I've been president for 4 years." "Yes, but unfortunately, you've been president of a legally non-existent entity for the past 2 years. Every fine, every citation, every rule enforcement action has been invalid." But I wasn't finished. "The good news is, I've already contacted the state and paid the back fees to reincorporate our H.O.A. The bad news is that the new incorporation requires a complete board election and a comprehensive review of all existing covenants and bylaws." Karen sputtered, trying to regain her composure. "Well, fine. I'll simply run for president again. Actually, that brings me to another interesting discovery. The original H.O.A. covenants include a morality clause that allows for the removal of board members who engage in harassment or frivolous complaints against neighbors. I've documented quite extensively your recent behavior. Over the next hour, I methodically walked Karen through every violation of proper H.O.A. procedures she committed, every invalid fine she issued, and every rule she'd enforced that didn't actually exist in our covenants." Her 2 supporters quietly excused themselves and headed home, leaving Karen standing alone on my porch with her clipboard hanging uselessly at her side. "But what about SDIYBT?" she asked weakly, still clinging to her original complaint. "Karen, that's internet slang. It doesn't mean start digging in yo but twin. It means start doing it yourself. Be thankful. Tyler and his friends were talking about a video game where you have to build your own base instead of waiting for help." The color drained from Karen's face as the full implications of everything I'd told her began to sink in. She'd spent weeks filing complaints based on completely misunderstood slang, harassing a family over teenage gaming terminology, and in the process, had triggered a complete audit of every H.O.A. action she'd taken over the past 2 years. "So you're saying I was wrong about the threat?" "Completely wrong. But more importantly, your response to your misunderstanding has invalidated every fine you've issued to every neighbor for months. When word gets out that all those citations were legally meaningless, I suspect you'll be hearing from quite a few angry residents." Karen stood there for a long moment, her clipboard trembling in her hands, as she realized that her crusade against imaginary gang threats had not only been completely baseless, but had also exposed years of improper H.O.A. management that would likely result in her permanent removal from any position of neighborhood authority. The mathematical beauty of it was perfect. Her own overzealous complaint process had triggered the very investigation that would end her reign of petty tyranny forever. As she stared at me with dawning horror, understanding that her misinterpretation of 4 letters had just cost her everything she'd spent years building, I could see the exact moment she realized she'd been completely and utterly outmaneuvered by the very system she thought she controlled.